Welcome to the Manufacturing AI Podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of having Tony, Oliver, and Marilyn, all experts in manufacturing and technology for decades, delivering solutions, scaling companies, and managing manufacturing companies at scale and small and medium. We had to start with those two before we got really big. So today we want to talk about a very interesting topic. Everybody's talking about AI. Everybody's talking about how AI can change our lives and how can AI will disrupt our economies and companies. I think we want to demystify that and we want to talk what is the reality and the capability of AI today? And how is that really solving problems for companies and not just being high technology? So with that, I like to start with Oliver. If you can tell us what's your take on AI? What's your experience so far? What you've seen is working, and how do you think this will be relevant to our audience?
Hey David, hi everyone. Yeah, it's an incredibly relevant topic for nowadays. Most of the people have used ChatGPT in one way or another. I'm sure that everybody is quite convinced of the capabilities of the technology, but it is often relegated to, white collar applications. And what is really exciting is that this technology, in the way that most people have experienced it, can add tremendous value in the shop floor for a small company as well as for a large company. I think one thing that makes AI so unique for manufacturing is that it empowers and enables people. It helps to solve problems, it helps to access information, and I'm sure we'll talk about what that means and why is that important. But I'm just going to leave it at that as a tremendous enabler, and we're just seeing the starting of the value generation.
Yeah, right on, Oliver. And Tony, I mean, you have been in the middle of technology delivery to manufacturing, meaning that making technology work in the real world. So what is your take on the potential of AI and what you've seen working and what you see is not working?
Yeah, thanks, David. And say hi to everybody and thanks for the time. It has been interesting to watch. We've been doing integration and technology and sensors and all this coming aggregated for decades. That's really nothing new. And I think what really AI, the impact that it's making is it's starting to put context across multiple disciplines. So not just the sensors, not just the equipment, but figuring out how that relates to everything real time. We have ERP, we have MAS, we have QMS, we have CMMS, but there's really not a context around everything, especially when things are live. So I think that's where AI is making a big difference is it really enabling people when it's happening right now to bring a lot of information, a lot of complex information from a lot of different places to a point of use that's critical at critical times.
Yeah, that's right on. And I like the way you frame it. And for our audience, we promise that you probably will see underneath our images what ERP and MES and all those nice acronyms. I probably know, but most of the people will know what we're talking about, to the plant managers, to the maintenance managers, to the COOs. They're probably used to all these tools, but I think you're completely right. I think the fact that AI is now enabling the automation of automations. That's the way I think about AI. And when you think about that any machine connected to a computer, connected to AI can become a robot, that's really powerful, right? And then all these data that exist in all these necessary and valuable systems, how can AI summarize and synthesize and unify this data and make it relevant, meaningful, and actionable to the right person that needs that, right? So that's where it's powerful, I think, and that's where I want to talk more about of the ideas and some of the use cases we have seen. I mean, we have been working with some great food and processing manufacturers, and what I like to do is share some of those stories and some of those success cases where we have seen the application of AI and some of the fundamental changes and impact it has in the manufacturing execution. So, Marilyn, what's your take? I mean, you've been around a while, working with manufacturing companies. I mean, you have seen a lot of cycles based on ERP, MES. I mean, what do you think is different now compared to the old typical legacy, system of registration, or MES or SAP? What do you think is different now?
I think one of the things that's different is the workforce. We have huge numbers of the final end of the baby boomers are retiring. You have the first generation, Gen X, starting to retire, and technology wasn't as big a part of their career experience as it is now. The younger people, they expect to work with technology. Technology runs their lives at home. It runs their lives when they were in school. It runs everything. And so it only makes sense to them that when they go to work in a manufacturing facility, the technology should be available to make their jobs faster, easier, and make them more efficient. So
Yeah.
the AI can amplify their efforts. It doesn't replace them, but it makes them twice as efficient.
That is a very interesting thought. Oliver, what, I mean, you have a topic in there, it
Yeah,
seems.
well, I guess what you mentioned triggered me here. We're talking about technology. Folks expect to have technology at the workplace. There was an interesting statistic speaking about how much is technology permeating different industries and sectors. What's surprising to me is that manufacturing ranks second from last of all industries to use technology for the frontline worker. And that's really shocking because, David, Tony, you guys mentioned cutting edge technology that are often referred to in the context of manufacturing. Obviously, ERP is the basic, SAP and Oracle and Plex, MES system, QMS. That all sounds like, wow, there's got to be a lot, companies got to be teched up the gazoo here. The reality is that when it comes to frontline work, it's a very different scenario. And so we're talking about AI, and many companies might be like, oh my God, I'm not even at the basic level here. And so what I think is really interesting at this point in time is that what we're going to talk about here is technology that can bridge all that can accelerate this, enablement for not just younger generations, but any generation, and really cover the gaps that exist very quickly. So anyway, I just got triggered with what you were saying.
No, you're right on. I mean, and I think this is an amazing problem when you talk about workforce, right? We have been working a lot with manufacturers, food and processing, CPGs, automotive manufacturing, and I think I haven't found one COO, one CEO, one plant manager, small, middle, or large company that tells me, "Oh, we're overstaffed, and we need to make sure what to do with the additional labor." Every single one, I speak to, they're understaffed, right? There is not enough people, and here's the big idea, right? Like I was doing some research, and right now, give or take, in the U.S., there are 10 million frontline workers just in manufacturing. I'm just speaking exclusively about manufacturing. And if you think about it, what I don't have the accurate number on GDP. We can post it while I'm talking here. But think about this idea, right? How can we double GDP in this country with the same amount of workers? How can we do that? So automation has taken us so far and so long, But I think what AI potential is the hyper productivity to help us double, triple that productivity, that automation of automations, so we can increase that GDP in double in 10 years. And there is some historic data that shows that at the golden age of manufacturing, we're talking about 1979, the peak of workers in manufacturing was only 19 million. So I don't think that is how we solve this problem, how we create a lot of competitiveness. And then that is the big idea, right? But then how do we connect this to the plant managers, to the maintenance managers, to the quality managers, to the COOs, to their context, right? Because I think that's where the magic of AI is going to help us as a country, as an economy. But how is that really going to help these middle market companies, these large companies or small companies in food and bev that need to do the same thing? How do they double their sales with the assets they have, right? And they're not going to get a lot more talent than what they have. How can they hyperscale and enable productivity? So what's your take, Tony? I mean, where should we start?
Yeah, and this is interesting timing because we were just at a bottling plant this week, and as I look at the number one, the amount of people that were staffed there was fairly sparse, but then on top of it, it's amplified by the increasing complexity of equipment and machines. So you don't have a standard workforce that you can pull anybody off the street and literally they can be making parts in 10 minutes. Now you have very complex machineries that have very complex sequence of operations and communications and visualizations and workflows. So that increases, the complexity for these operators that, are newly hired, have to come in, or it's second shift and the guy that knows how to repair that isn't in. So again, not only do we have all of this new information, but now we have this increasing demand of complexity from consumers that want more variety, that want more models, that want more flavors. So all that does is add to the complexity of the setup, of the operation. So we really see an amplification of the need for these operators to really have the information to be able to manage, to fix, to communicate with management on what's going on. So I think AI continues to help amplify those operators in this increasingly complex environment.
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess I
Jump
was
in
going to
here
just,
because one of the things we've been seeing a lot of is a lot of the people we talk to, the manufacturers, is the problem with downtime.
yeah,
And it's an age-old problem, but what AI can do is significantly reduce the amount of time it takes to resolve the problem because it puts key information available at the fingertips of the frontline operators instead of having to go chasing all over the place, trying to find an engineer, trying to find a supervisor, trying to find somebody to say, hey, I'm down. They've got it right at their fingertips what they should do. It can escalate and contact the right person at the right time. So it can really, because downtime can hit any company, small, medium, or large, really, really hard. How do you reduce it? How do you eliminate it? And
yeah,
AI can help.
yeah. And Oliver, I think you wanted to say something. I like to tell you a story about downtime, Marilyn, because you're right on. I mean, downtime is it's a low-hanging fruit, but there's so many factors sometimes, not just responding quickly, but having the time to respond. So I will tell you a story, but Oliver, you had an idea.
well, no, I think there, Marilyn, what you said is very rightly on. And David, what you're mentioning, downtime, that is one of the biggest challenges aside from labor shortages and cost of quality, probably afflicts every single manufacturing company. And yet one would think that even very, sophisticated companies have that under control. And like Tony mentioned, one of the factories we've been in, like the one behind me, you would believe how long it takes sometimes to react to that downtime. And I think, David, that's where I think you came from as a founder of Andonix. That was one of your major drivers of, isn't there a better mousetrap? And then now AI is coming into that equation. So I was just wondering on your reflection on, how do you see that converging and what's the ROI? Because I think a lot of small companies are still thinking, look, before I think about AI, I got to solve downtime and my basic problems. Yet it converges, doesn't it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Oliver. And yeah, I will tell you this story, but before I gotta tell you that it seems that the plant behind you it's in trouble. It's down, like nobody's
Yeah.
working
A lot of
anymore.
downtime going on there.
Yeah, so we need to help them too. So, but yeah, so let me tell you a quick story, right? Because, you know, I was able to start companies from scratch, manufacturing companies from scratch. And I remember I was a supervisor before I became a production manager, an operation manager, and then a plant manager. And then I was very fortunate to be able to scale my company and become a co-founder of a large global manufacturing company. But so I remember like this time we bought a really nice equipment. It was a $10 million, and I remember that we bought also a lot of custom made systems. And Tony, you probably will find this hilarious because before SCADA was sexy and the only ERP in town was, and I'm not going to say the brand because they were partners. Now they're our partners, but there was not a lot of sophistication on IT. So make a long story short, very sophisticated equipment. We needed to run almost 24/7 because we had a lot of volume. And I remember there was so much complexity to your point, Tony. And my goal at that time as second shift operations manager, I was on second shift trying to launch that, was to get downtime to almost zero and then quality to 99.99% and then zero claims from our customers, right? So I devoted myself every single shift, every single hour, every single day to that mission. And I had a short staff. Like I had a couple of maintenance guys. I had a quality engineer. I had a supervisor and a team leader. And I had a 35 team members in my shift that I was launching. It was a brand new operation. And I'm kidding you not. Like every single day, like first of all, we bought this beautiful system, factory information system, SCADAs. We had graphic user interfaces. They were sexy, believe it or not. At that time, they were touch screens. And I remember every single day, I will arrive an hour early. I will look at the last shift log, look at what their issues were, document those, and say, okay, I gotta pay attention to the equipment, I gotta pay attention to fulfillment. Then I will basically tell my maintenance guy, like, get me all the failure modes and all the codes from the equipment so I can look at those and then look at every single checklist and record, right? I kid you not, I spent like not less than 4 hours every day looking at data from different systems, from different records, and then making sense out of it, and then having few meetings on the floor, stand-up meetings with maintenance, with quality, and telling we need to focus on this. And that was so much work. And I'm telling you, it took me a lot of effort. I finally got there. Our systems changed once we got new orders from our customers, new product, engineering levels. In less than a year, all our systems became obsolete because they were so rigid. And then I was successful to get to hit all the goals, but scaling that was so hard. And to your point, Oliver, and I want to get your take on this, Tony. Like, I think that what is different today with AI is precisely that ability to take data automatically from all these systems, to replace that paper with digital data, to unify that and do that analysis for you, and then tell the person that cares about that what to do. Like the research we released last week shows, and I want Marilyn to talk about great work, but this is pervasive. Every single supervisor, team leader, maintenance engineer, they're spending 3 to 4 hours every day on this type of work instead of hitting their numbers. And AI can automate all that today. That's real today. And that's what I think it's very exciting to be in manufacturing today because of that. So Tony, what's your take? And then Marilyn, I'd really like to hear about your experience with all this gray work and what, the effects are in automating that.
Yeah, and I think there is to your point a little bit earlier, I think there is an anxiety around the effort, the lift, the cost, the ROI of AI. And in some cases, I'm sure you could spend $6 million and get this much value out of it in 3 years, hopefully. Whereas, what we're seeing at Andonix is within days, within a couple of weeks, we're watching huge ROI without having to have these hugely robust systems that take years of investment and a lot of prayer that it's going to turn out right, whether it's the ERP system or the MES system or the SCADA system. All of those take incredible expertise and investment long term, and a lot of people are anxious about that. And I think that's where we're seeing a big shift in technology and AI in SaaS products. Is it's really kind of flipping that on its head of, maybe we need to reevaluate. Maybe we can use these tools even to help us make those investments of the MES system, of the ERP, because you start getting that transparency, that quick visibility to help you make those decisions of, oh, I really need to capture this in the MES system. And we're able to use some of these very light and agile tools to kind of expose those.
That's awesome. Marilyn, what do you think?
I think he's right. And you had said you wanted me to talk about gray work. So, what is gray work? Basically, it's work you have to do, but doesn't really add immediate value. It doesn't help you get the product out the door. It's compliance reports. It's filling in all kinds of paperwork that you got to do, but it doesn't help you get more product out the door faster. And it doesn't always improve quality or things like that. What if you could automate most of that? Well,
That's
you can with AI.
powerful.
That's what it does.
Yeah.
So with
Yeah, that's
Andonix, one of the
huge.
things that we're able to do, we were talking to a plant that we have, it's one of our customers, and they're telling us, they're short on engineers. They're having a hard time getting engineers. And by being able to automate and use AI to help with a lot of these compliance reports, they've been able to shrink the amount of time their engineers spend on compliance reports by 75%.
That's
Imagine
incredible.
that, 75%. So
That's
it's
a
like
lot.
having an extra one or two engineers.
That's can
Oh,
be a game changer. I think one thing that's really interesting when we talk about this is, how do most companies approach this, as a, like, where do I start and then where does that go into? And usually AI is at the very end of everything. Most companies and managers think that, oh, I got to start with connecting my machines first because that's what everybody does. And I need a robot and I need to automate. Well, as a matter of fact, that is only important when, certain conditions are really there to enable a very quick return on investment. But
Right.
the reality is that it doesn't always start there. When you think about, where is your biggest waste? Gray work is a big element of that. Why? Because it's implicit to your operating system. You have to do it, but you're
Mandatory.
burdening your whole team to having
Right.
to do it. And I think we all gotten accustomed over the years that, well, it was always done this way, and now we got to keep doing it that way. And the reality is that it's not so. And if you just stop and think real quick and say, okay, do I really have to worry about connecting my machine and have a lot of data that I have nothing, that I cannot do anything with? Or can I start to automate menial tasks, things
Yeah.
that bog down my people, my staff? All they're doing is typing and capturing information here and there, transferring information from system to system. Or can I give them time back and thereby enable continuous improvement? Think about, how do I add more value? how do we improve our process? That
Yeah.
is usually where the biggest value is.
Yeah, I think, I mean, you're speaking about it, and I am thinking about lean, right? I mean, I think lean is kind of like the last mile operating system, right? In automotive, but everything you're talking about, this gray work and mandatory work, it most of it is just because it's good practices to run the floor.
Hmm.
So, but I think the challenge is that by implementing lean, we introduce all this bureaucracy and complexity. So it's like, why can't we make lean lean, right? And that's what AI is actually doing, like literally automating all that, which is needed and is valuable. All this visual management, all these andons, all these Kanbans, all these Gambas, but like boosting the value and simplifying the time and the effort it takes. So people are consuming information and taking action and hitting their numbers instead of producing information and maintaining boards and filling reports and going to multiple systems. So I think that's powerful. And again, in the age of worker shortages, I think that what Marilyn was saying is so powerful. Like imagine if you have a small team of 10 engineers, supervisors, team leaders, and you give them back 50% of their time, okay? It's like now you're having a team of 15 people, right? And this is where companies can take advantage. They can punch way above their head. Because it's, I mean, it's just creating additional capacity, and this is now going into culture and leadership, because if they find more time to really fix problems in manufacturing with the machine. If you're a maintenance guy, instead of like trying to find data or the instructions or the step by step to fix the problem or find the spare part and or filling a ticket report, instead you're on the wrench time, meaning fixing the problem. I mean, that's powerful, right? And then as a leader, I mean, you're like, okay, can these guys also have a better life? So the burnout is a huge issue why people are rotating so high, because these jobs are not for the faint of heart, right? So I mean, I think that I mean, we can get into a lot of examples on use cases, but I think we're getting to the end of our for chaptering. We will do more, but I mean, you also mentioned, Oliver, like where do you start, right? Like let's talk about the. I mean, if this is so powerful and this is valuable today and it's feasible today, I mean, what are the roadblocks, the challenges that middle companies have or large companies? Because I mean, I get it. Large companies, they got a lot of people, they got teams looking at how do we improve 1 minute of downtime, right? But the smaller teams, they don't have that. So what do you guys see, Tony? You did a lot of technology delivery all over. I mean, you've seen it around the world in Maryland. I mean, you have seen the adoption challenges of technology at, every time you get technology on the door. So what do you guys think? I mean, how can we tell our plant managers, our COOs or maintenance managers, how do we help them simplify their journey to get this value?
Well, let's simplify things because it really is not complicated. The basic fundamentals in terms of where do you get started, obviously, is you need an internet connection. So your plant needs to have internet. So that's number one, because most systems now run on the cloud. At least your newer generation technology runs on the cloud. There's an inherent benefit for that because that means it's from an IT perspective, it means zero touch, zero complexities. You don't need an internal team. So for a small company, this is, the golden age for quickly deploying technology and really any technology that you would like to adopt. So start there. But once you have an internet connection, start with empowering people. And how do you do that? It's through a system or a technology that's called a connected worker system or connected worker platform. What does that mean? It's basically giving your employees access to a tablet, to a mobile device, to any computing device, can even be a wearable, and give them access to a system that they can do two basic things really well. One is, what do I need to do? how do I need to do it, in what
Hmm.
order I need to do it, and in ideal scenario, guides me step by step with videos, with pictures. So it's almost like watching YouTube when you're doing pancakes at home. That's like it should be at the factory. And then connecting you with the right people when you have a challenge, when you have a problem, that you can quickly notify the right individuals. You often don't need to know who that even is. The system will do it for you. The system will bring people together into collaboration to solve the problem quickly. And then we talked about AI. The best systems have AI integrated, almost like ChatGPT permeating the system, augmenting people to access the information they need, um, creating lots of automation so that you don't have to do it. So that's really, in a very simplified way, the way to get started.
Low-hanging fruits, and that's great, Oliver and Tony. I mean, what's your take? I mean, technology that works. Where do you see those roadblocks, and what are some of the best ideas to go fast and get value?
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of fear just because, is this
Yeah.
just a one point investment and you have your point solution and that's it. And I think what people need to understand that this is just that single point of the start of the journey. Our package just continually amplifies and complements the system. So as you're able to add those additional systems, as you're able to scale, as you're looking to add an MES or integrate that MES, these are all very complementary things. So I think there's a fear of, well, I can't do this because this is going to be disruptive, down the line, or when I do this, I have to shift all my focus. Again, these are all very complementary systems that really help amplify the productivity, not only of the people, but of the system. So as you get that start
Yeah.
point, we're here for that whole timeline as you get through the full digital maturity, to help you along that journey. So I think that may help take some of that friction and fear of getting started with that one
Yeah.
one
You
start.
mentioned fear. I think that's, leadership culture and you're very right on these ideas. I think that, when you think about the adoption of AI, making that accessible and distributed, and I want to talk very quickly about agents to wrap up these, but I also want Marilyn to tell us her experience. I mean, you have seen a lot of technology implementations, Marilyn. I mean, what's your take on removing that friction and going fast and maximizing the investment? Like Tony said, you don't have to rip and replace. I mean, how do you empower and increase productivity everywhere fast?
Well, I just think one of the easiest things to do, and it's not a heavy lift, is to digitize your shop floor. If
Okay.
your facility is still using paper-based workflows and log sheets and recipes and whatever, you need to digitize that. And it does a lot of things. Number one, it's going to significantly improve productivity because all they have to do is go into their device, put the information, it gets automatically tabulated by the AI. But the other thing is it's going to dramatically improve quality
Mm-hmm.
because things are going to be standardized for the first time. People are they're going to have to follow the rules and in the checklist and check them off as they go. Whereas if they've got a piece of paper, if you can even find it after they fill it out, who knows? So to me, that is the easiest thing to do. And most employees would love to do that because it simplifies their lives.
Yeah, no, you're right on. And we're running out of time, but maybe I can tee off for next episode because I think, talking about, this big idea on, hyper productivity and how AI is already impacting manufacturing, what we're seeing with food processors. I think it's real and it's happening today, right? And all these challenges, I think it's important that we articulate them for plant managers, for our audience, right? On the reality of, what's feasible, what's doable, what is the problem you can solve today with AI, right? And I think that, there is no technology that will like literally say, okay, if you're understaffed by 100 people, move your wand and 100 people qualified, trained, ready to go, know all your systems are going to show up at your door. I mean, there is no technology to do that, but technology today and this agentic AI can literally make your team of 100 produce like 150, right? And you don't need a lot of work to really get them there. They're the ones that show up every day. So how do you make them more productive, give them the right tools, and enable them to outperform, and then you can outcompete, and so you can share all the value. And for our next episode, I mean, we can talk more about some of the agentic AI, what that means. But today, for example, some of the agents that we're seeing our customers use, an agent that is automating the supervisor report every day, right? So he's not spending hours just what happened and logging everything, or going system through system and doing all the downtime and looking at production and telling, the next shift what's going on. How do you automate that with agents? I think that's one of the things where we're seeing supervisors being empowered. Like work instructions now with AI, you can automatically create those as simple as, taking a picture of a problem and asking, the agent, can you create a work instruction to help me solve this problem, a PDF, or just a problem that has been detected or by a sensor that triggers an andon in our solution. And it tells you immediately, this is the checklist that you need to implement immediately to correct it everywhere in your plant, wherever you have this problem, right? We have agents actually putting together issues and organizing them in action registers. We have agents that are creating also, the filing of reports and then shooting them directly to the system of record that you need. I mean, all that automation is happening today, and that's something we can discuss during our next episode, and get our audience a little bit more insights on how that works. So what do you think? Is that something that you guys like to talk about now during our next episode?
Sounds good.
Sounds like a plan.
Absolutely.
Well, I think it's time to say goodbye. We really appreciate the privilege of your time, and until the next episode. Again, this is the Manufacturing AI Podcast. Thank you.